All right, law and order was a major theme of the final night of the RNC. The president spoke about it extensively during his speech, and Housing and Urban Development Secretary Ben Carson specifically addressed the violence in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Take a listen.
Our hearts go out to the Blake family and the other families who've been impacted by the tragic events in Kenosha. As Jacob's mother has urged the country, let's use our hearts, our love, and our intelligence to work together.
All right, the town of Kenosha, Wisconsin, has been overtaken by violence, rioting, and looting since the shooting death of Jacob Blake by a police officer last Sunday. Joining us now is Congressman Bryan Steil, who represents the people of Kenosha. Congressman, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on.
You know, I've mentioned to you before, but I was able to visit Kenosha a couple times. This, to me, is just astonishing that it's happening in a town like Kenosha. Can you give us an update on the investigation into Jacob Blake, as well as what the current situation is on the ground?
Yeah, Kenosha, it's a beautiful town, family-centered, hardworking community. And to see this occur in our community, it really hurts your heart. It's a difficult video to watch, but then we saw the violence play out. After the second night of violence, it was very clear that we did not have the resources needed to be able to provide public safety in Kenosha. I called the President of the United States. He answered my phone call and offered assistance to the state of Wisconsin. On Tuesday, our governor turned that down. We had a third night of very significant violence. Bad went to worse. And ultimately, by Wednesday, the governor accepted that offer. Federal assistance came in. We were able to have a much more peaceful evening the past two nights. That's really positive for everyone involved. Everyone in our community deserves to feel safe.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think, you know, of the president addressing this last night and also talking about what happens if the radical left takes over, what the world would look like. Let's take a listen to that.
Left takes power. They will apply their disastrous policies to every city, town, and suburb in America. Just imagine if the so-called peaceful demonstrators in the streets were in charge of every lever of power in the U.S. government. Just think of that.
You know, Congressman, when I think of Kenosha, and Sean kind of mentioned this, it's not a major city. It's a suburb. It's a bedroom community. And so people sometimes say, oh, this is what's happening to our cities. But you are there in a suburb of Wisconsin where we're seeing this happen. It's good to hear that things have been a little bit more peaceful lately. But how much is this hitting close to home, not just for the people of Kenosha, but other suburbs in Wisconsin where people say, this could be me?
Yeah, I mean, Kenosha is a town of about 100,000 people, hardworking, family-oriented, and I can't tell you how many people reached out. I spent time in the city of Kenosha the other day talking to families, to workers, to officials. People are scared, they're concerned, and it's what's so important about making sure our local law enforcement in Kenosha has the resources that they need to be able to keep our community safe. But Kenosha is no different than Janesville, my hometown, or other cities across the United States. And when you see this play out, it is imperative that we make sure that our local law enforcement has the resources that they need to be able to restore public safety immediately, not the next week, the next month, immediately.
Congressman, you mentioned the phone call you made to the president. You've also been very, very active in urging the governor to accept this aid of additional resources. Do you think it's still needed? Because you just said that things were calming down. Is the need still there? And where is it in terms of the discussion between you, the governor, and the president?
Things have calmed down the past two nights, but I think it's important that we maintain all of that support at the request of our local law enforcement. So local law enforcement is making these decisions, and that's where I got involved. They reached out and said, Bryan, we don't have the resources we need. And so I called the president and said, we need to make sure we get the resources into the city of Kenosha so that they can restore public safety. And so the governor needs to maintain that accepting those resources. We need to maintain public safety. The president's committed. I'm committed to making sure that we have the resources that we need in Kenosha to keep our community safe.
You know, Congressman, I don't want to make this political because I know that lives are at stake here and people's businesses and families, but we are in an election year, and there's speculation that this will change the views of some swing voters. Even the New York Times had an article out that says how chaos in Kenosha is already swaying some voters in Wisconsin. Do you think that this is true?
I think people are looking for leadership. I talked to folks in Kenosha and said, we need to make sure that we're getting the assistance and the resources into the city. I don't think they care if there was a Democrat or a Republican or a man on the moon that delivered those resources, but it really showed who brought leadership to the table. The president answered the call, brought the resources to the table, and ensured public safety in Kenosha. He deserves a lot of credit for that type of leadership. I think voters always recognize leadership. Lack of leadership, they don't like. And I think it's very clear who demonstrated leadership in this situation.
Yep. Congressman, my heart goes out to you guys. I appreciate you joining us and giving us an update on what's happening there in Kenosha, and wish you and everyone that you represent the very best. And I hope get back to some degree of safety and normalcy.
Thank you very much, and keep everyone in Kenosha in your prayers.
We definitely
All
will.
right.
Thanks, Congressman. All right, well, when we come back, we're going to talk to our company and have them break down the nights of the RNC and compare the DNC as well. Don't go away.